Hello, and welcome to my review of the 1 to 100 scale Master Grade Jesta. So right out of the box, you're going to get the Master Grade Jesta, a beam rifle, 1 beam saber, 2 beam effect parts, 3 spare magazines for the beam rifle, as well as a shield and the attachment point to the back. You also get a nice bag of spare parts that aren't used on the kit itself, as well as a small foil sticker for the eye and some dry transfer decals. So the Master Grade Jesta isn't going to be as colorful as your typical Gundam suit. It's going to be mainly composed of a dark navy blue, a lighter blue, and some grays. But I think that it fits its grunt nature very well. It looks like a suit that would be mass produced. Also really like the blocky nature of the kit. As you'll see with the spin around, it's very detailed with a lot of nice piping details on the back. As I mentioned before, the blocky nature on the legs and the upper body all suit its aesthetics very well. I really like how the head is asymmetrical with the antenna on one side and the kind of visor on the other. I like the general yellow visor as well. Gives it that grunt look. And I think one of the coolest things is that you can really see how the original RX-78 influenced the design of this kit, because in the canon timeline, this is developed from the original Gundam. And you can definitely see it with just the way the torso is fixed up, as well as the general shapes and design of the legs. All very Gundam-esque. Now in terms of the model kit, I think the kit itself is very stable. Nothing's ever really that loose. And it is a very simpler kit, no backpack or anything, so this kit can be more stable overall. So in terms of articulation, the head is going to be on a simple ball joint that gives it a good amount of movement. You can also twist 360 degrees. However, be warned that there is an LED unit that you can put into the Gundam, so if you lift up its neck too high, you can expose part of the cavity where the LED is supposed to go. Now onto the torso. The torso has a very nice range of movement. It can crunch up and down like so. You can also swing off side to side ever so slightly. And it's just an overall very stable torso. The waist can't really rotate that much because there's this piping detail right there, but it can rotate enough to get off your typical poses. Now onto the shoulders. The shoulders are attached onto this mechanism where you can raise the shoulder entirely. I really like the overall detail on these shoulders, these gray pieces showing through the inner frame. But this will rotate 360 degrees. Eventually, we will pop a shield attachment onto here, so this part will be limited, but it should be fine for this arm. The arm itself will also rotate here, 180 degree, no problem. Exposes a lot of nice detail here. Should be looking nice if you paint it up. And the arm here will also rotate 360 degrees, no problem. The wrist here, also 360 degrees, no problem. Now, the hands on this kit is going to be the perfect grade style manipulators. I recently learned they're called the emotional manipulators, but they function just like real hands, all your digits. And there is going to be a tab here that you can pull out to attach the weapons. Now the back of each arm is slightly different. On here you're going to have an attachment here that you can slide open and attach a beam saber onto. And here is going to be just a giant block that you can stick all 3 spare beam rifle magazines into. Now moving on to the lower body, for the front skirts, it will lift up just like that. If you lift the arms up, you can also lift the side skirts up a bit. These are hand grenades, and these do pop out, like so. But the back skirt doesn't really move, unfortunately. But with these skirts out of the way, you can lift the legs up for a nice 90 degree kick. The bend is also similar, going to be just in 90 degrees until you pop out the joint. Did you see that? This pops out, and this allows it to achieve almost a 180 degree bend. Exposing some nice detail there. Once you straighten out again, you can also just slide this back in, and now you have a more stable leg that doesn't need to be bent. For the ankles, there's going to be a very cool mechanism here where the entire foot can kind of become loose. It's just attached over here, and this will allow it to have a lot of mobility in terms of going back and forth. Off to the side and side is also very impressive. You will be able to get some very stable and nice ground poses with these ankles. The back pieces here, like the vents, they move very slightly. I'm not quite sure if they're supposed to move during the bend or whatever, but they do slide around ever so slightly. Back of the Gundam is pretty simple. You're just going to have two moving parts here on the thrusters, which can slide out for a more dynamic boosting pose. Other than that, there's going to be attachment points on both sides that you can use to attach in the shield. And the shoulders are very impressive. You can slide them out to slide the arms across the chest, and the torso will open up to expose the cockpit. And there we go. So the beam rifle of the Jesta is a bit monotone. It's just going to be molded in this gray color, but I think it does look very nice, a lot of detail. One of the cool points is this kind of iron sight here. The scope is going to have a clear orange piece. The magazine here is going to unplug. You're going to get 4 of these, including this one. 3 of them go on the back of the arm, and 1 of them go on the beam rifle. Here's a little handle that can swing up and down. Normally you just swing it here, but you can also slide it outwards so that the suit can hold it with both hands. And of course, on the handle here is going to be a little tab that can slide out, and it can attach onto the manipulators for a more stable grip. So the shield of the Jesta is definitely one of the selling points for me. It's very nicely detailed. You get a nice yellow piece here, as well as pieces for the missiles. You get an attachment point here for the back, as well as a mechanism to maneuver around the shoulder. It's very maneuverable, a lot of nice joints. You can definitely get this in whatever pose you want. And of course, down here, you're also going to be able to use a handle to have the Jesta hold it like a normal shield. So last, and probably the least, is going to be the beam saber. It's a pretty standard beam saber. You're going to have a part here that can fold out to attach into the hand. It's going to be molded in a dark purplish color. And while you do only get a single beam saber, you do get 2 of these effect parts. Arming up the Gundam is relatively simple. Just going to take the beam saber, slide it in here, probably try to hide the handle component, slide it back in, and then drop the top. Once you get all 3 magazines all lined up, you can very easily plug them into the back of the arm. By sliding open the little tab on the hand as well as the beam rifle, they should offset each other. You will be able to plug the beam rifle into the hands. And if you play around with the hands a little, you can get it into a very convincing grip. And the shield is much simpler. You're just going to attach this side of the attachment into the attachment on the back. Like so. So all armed up, I think the Jesta really retains its simplicity. The beam rifle is very nice looking, and the shield is very nicely detailed, but still simple. It really helps the illusion that this is something that it can be mass manufactured and can serve as a grunt suit. One small complaint I do have is mainly the design, is that the shield, its default position, is going to be facing the back. I would have preferred it if it was maybe facing off to the side, dropping over the shoulder, something like the 00 Quanta. But posing, I think, is where this guy really begins to stand out. You can get him in a lot of nice poses, even without an action base. And I think the fact that he is a grunt suit makes him suited to a lot of militaristic type of poses. I really like just how well the shoulders can pose, able to swing his hands around to aim the other way. And as I mentioned before, the shield looks a lot nicer when it's swung over the shoulder rather than on the back. But I think the most impressive part of this kid's mobility has to be in its lower half, where it can do these very nice kneeling poses. Again, very militaristic. I just have it here in a simple reloading pose, which I think is how I'm going to be keeping it, just because it really fits the aesthetics of the suit. You'll have to twist the arm at a bit of a weird angle, but you can definitely have it look like it's going to grab its deployed beam saber. And with a bit of patience, you can definitely get the shield held in the hand, maneuvered around with its very nice amount of mobility, and the beam saber in hand. And you know, it's a beam saber, it's always going to pose well. And if you're inclined to do so, the kit does come with an action-based adapter, but I think that this kit looks great on the ground, so I won't be posing it on the action base. So for a height comparison, here he is next to the Master Grade Ale Strike version remastered. So in canon, the Jesta is 19.3 meters tall, while the Ale Strike is 17.73 meters tall, and as you can see, there is a bit of head height between the Jesta and the Strike. So now for some of my final thoughts, as well as pros and cons on the Master Grade Jesta. So this is actually my first Grunt kit. I've never been a big fan of the Grunt designs in the Gundam series. I think the ones that really stand out to me are, of course, the Jesta, as well as the Leo from Gundam Wing, and maybe a few other UC suits like the Roselle, and maybe like the GM Sniper, etc. But I was very impressed with just how they translated the design of the Jesta into the Master Grade. It still looks simplistic, but has detail in all the right area, and I think that this kit has really sold me on the idea of Grunt suits in the Master Grade scale. So, and I'm just kind of waiting for the Leo as a Master Grade, since, there's a Master Grade Tall Geese, and the Tall Geese is basically just a buffed up Leo. So on to some pros, I think one of the biggest pros is that the build quality of this kit is absolutely amazing. I was very skeptical about this kit. A Grunt unit, very simple. As a Master Grade, is it worth it? Is it worth the $40 price tag? And I absolutely think it is. Since it's just a kit overall, there's no backpack or anything, the overall inner frame and the engineering can be a lot more complex. So let's say you compare this to the Master Grade Freedom 2.0, which is a similar price range. And the Freedom has those giant wings on the backpack, so the overall Gundam unit itself is a lot simpler compared to the Jesta, which doesn't have a backpack, so there's more parts and engineering in the kit overall. And that translates very well into the build quality, and it's very amazing how you can take such a simple design, but the inner stuff and the build quality is so complex and interesting. And that really ties in with just how articulate and mobile the kit is. I think any kind of pose you want, you can be able to get it, especially those kneeling poses, which I think really fit the military aspect of the kit very well. Just very impressed with that overall. I really liked how the legs can kind of lock in and extend if you need to bend them down, or lock in together if you want to be more stable in a standing pose. It's very impressive. But for some of the cons, I can't really think of too many cons with the kit. I guess maybe like the play value of this kit is a little bit low. You don't get too many accessories. Just a single beam saber, the shield, and the beam rifle. But again, this is a lower ranged priced Master Grade kit. I think my biggest con against this kit has to be this connection here with the shield. The shield itself and the connection is a bit heavy, and the attachment here is a bit simple. I can understand why they did it, because they want to release just a cannon, so they want to have a universal attachment point for the cannon mount. But I think that this shield might be a bit too heavy for the joint, because as I was posing the Gundam, posing the mobile suit, I found that a lot of times the shield would just kind of pop out, and as it popped out more and more, it just became looser and looser. But nothing that paint and a little cement can't fix. So while that is kind of an issue, it can also be very easily fixed. Another small complaint I would have is definitely with the emotion manipulators overall. While it's very impressive that you can have them at the 1/100 scale, fully articulate fingers, they are a bit loose and they are a bit difficult to pose. The fingers are prone to popping off. And when they first come out of the sprue, you're gonna have to bend them a lot to make sure that they don't, aren't super stiff. You can get them into the poses that you actually want. So yeah, overall, I think this is a very good kit. Really changed my mind on Grunt kits. The engineering in this thing is just overall very amazing, and I think that it goes very well with a lot of if you want to do some kind of kit bash or custom kit. I think this lends itself very well to that. So yeah, thank you for watching my review on the Master Grade Jesta. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.